Hey guys, so today I thought we would go over the radio procedures for entering a controlled airport. It's something that's very intimidating to new pilots, especially going into a control zone for your first time. And if you're doing your training at an uncontrolled airport, it'll be something brand new for you. So I thought I would make this video to help you out with your first time entering a control zone. The scenario for today, we're departing Hanover, which is to the northeast. We're coming down to Kitchener for touch and go, and then we're going to return to Hanover. So let's jump right into it, and we'll talk about what calls you have to make. A good procedure that you want to follow is ABCC, and it stands for ATIS, brief, checklist, and then communicate. So starting with the ATIS, when you're about 10 to 15 miles out, you want to listen to the ATIS and get the current weather. So that's going to tell you the current wind, the altimeter setting, which you can update in your altimeter. It'll tell you the active runway and the current information blank. So it's going to be Alpha, Bravo, Charlie, Delta, Golf. And that's important to write down, and you'll advise the controllers that you have that. So step number one is to get the AWOS and write down the weather. You can update your altimeter, and you're going to do this about 15 miles out from the aerodrome. So if this red dot is representing us, maybe when we're somewhere around here, kind of a B Melora, past Drayton, you would have listened to the weather. Next, you're going to move on to the B, so brief. You want to brief yourself on the active runway and the circuit height, the runway length, and so on to prepare yourself for the airport. So we'll say in this scenario, the active runway is runway 26 at Kitchener. So that's what we're kind of planning on. Now, we can't commit to it because we obviously need a clearance, but that's what we're planning on. So we briefed ourselves. We're expecting runway 26, the circuit height. We would add 1,000 feet to our elevation, and we know what our circuit height is. The next, we have checklists. So very quickly, if you were doing a long descent, you could do your descent checklist, slowly enriching your mixture and so on. But the last step is communicate, which is what we're going to focus on here. So communicate. Once you're roughly 10 miles out, you want to make your initial contact with the tower. So you'll dial up the tower frequency. You check your Canada Flight Supplement for your frequencies. And your first call, you just want to get the tower's attention, and you don't want to overload them with information. So your first call, you'll include your call sign and that you have information blank, whichever it was from the AWOS. So it's going to sound something like this. Say Waterloo Tower, Cessna 150, Golf, Alpha, Bravo, Charlie, with information Delta. So that's going to get their attention, and it's going to let them know that you have the most up-to-date weather. If you don't include the information blank, the controller is just simply going to ask you, okay, do you have the current weather? And if not, you would switch back, listen to it, and then come back. But it just creates a lot of radio congestion, which is unnecessary. So that's your first call. And then the call coming back from the tower is going to be Alpha Bravo Charlie, Waterloo Tower, squawk 1234 or a certain code, and state your intentions. So your initial contact, you always include your full call sign. If the controller shortens it up to Alpha Bravo Charlie, then you can continue with that moving forward. So in this case, they shortened it up for us, which is nice. They also told us to squawk 1234 and state your intentions. So you can repeat the squawk code, and then let them know what you're going to be doing. So your radio call is going to sound something like Alpha Bravo Charlie, squawk 1234, inbound for touch and go. We last departed Hanover, and we're 10 nautical miles to the northeast at 3,500. So on this call, I'm giving them a little bit more information. I'm telling them my location, my intention of what I'm coming in to do, a touch and go. If you were just going to be doing a landing, you would just say I'm inbound for landing. But they want to know definitely your last departed aerodrome and your location, laterally and vertically. To include that, what they're doing with your altitude is just verifying that your transponder is reporting the correct altitude that you are at. So they're just double checking that. So that is going to be your call. So once you've let them know what your intention is, the tower is going to respond back to you, and basically this is where they're going to give you a clearance. So an example of this is going to be Alpha Bravo Charlie, Roger, your radar identified, which means they just have you on radar. You're cleared right base runway 26, not below 2,600 over the city. So now that we have a transponder code, we're allowed to enter the controlled airspace. If they do not want you in there, they're going to make it very clear, and they will say, do not enter the controlled area. If you do not hear that, and if you have a squawk code and you're talking to the controller, you have two-way communication, you're okay to enter the zone. That's not an issue. If they don't want you in there, they're going to very clearly say, do not enter the control zone. Most of the time, you will not hear them say, okay, you're cleared to enter the zone. They don't always say that, but they do make it very clear if they do not want you in there. So we're cleared for a right base, runway 26. So we want to, as we're coming in, I'm going to just drag this dot up to about 10 miles, maybe around Elora here. This is where we would have contacted the tower. The right base is right here. So runway 26 is out to the west here and right-hand circuit. So we've been cleared to this base leg. So we can, we're going to enter the zone, and we're just going to visually navigate ourselves to this corner of the circuit, planning out our spacing. And they also gave us a restriction of not below 2,600 over the city. Now coming from the north, we're not really over the city, but if you're coming from the west, you're definitely going to get that altitude restriction. But the radio call you want to respond with, it was a clearance, so we got to repeat the entire thing back to the controller. So our call to respond is going to be Alpha Bravo Charlie, cleared right base runway 26, not below 2,600 over the city. So now we're able to continue flying along our track here. We can enter the zone, and we're going to start to make a turn out to get ready to join our right base. All done visually. A couple things the controller may have you do along this section, in this area here. They may ask you to report entering the zone. They may ask you to report established on the base. And it's as simple as that. Once you've entered the zone, you'll just say Waterloo Tower, Alpha Bravo Charlie entering the zone. Or if he asked you to report on the base, you're going to report once you're established on the base. You could also have some traffic conflicts as you're coming into the zone. And those, the controller is going to advise you that there's traffic in a certain position. We'll say there's traffic 1 o'clock. To respond to this, what you will do, first look for the traffic. If you see them right away, you can respond to the controller. Yep, Alpha Bravo Charlie has traffic in sight, no conflict. Or if you do not see them, you'll just respond Alpha Bravo Charlie looking for the traffic. So they know that you're looking for them, but you don't see them yet. He'll keep the both of you separated until you're visual, and then it'll be up to you to maintain your separation. So a couple different calls could happen in that area, or there could be none, and you're just flying along, waiting till you're on the base. Very, very important that you're just listening to the radio. If the controller calls you on the radio, make sure you're understanding what they're saying, and you're not missing any calls because you're talking to your passengers or talking over top of the radio. So it's important, just listen, and you're just waiting for the controller to talk to you. So, beings we're doing a touch and go in this scenario, the controller may ask, before we're on the base, okay, what are your intentions after the touch and go? And you're just going to respond with what you want to do. So you'll say, Waterloo Tower, Foxtrot Lima Romeo, after the touch and go, we'll be returning to Hanover at 4,500. And they'll just respond and say, Roger, so then they know. We'll say we're on the base here. So we're on the base leg. We can turn on to final without any other clearance from the controller, but we cannot land without a clearance. It's also important to note the type of landing clearance that you get. There is a difference between being cleared for a touch and go and cleared for landing. So if you're just cleared to land, runway 26, you would have to land and then exit the runway. If you're cleared for a touch and go, then you're allowed to come down, you touch the runway, and then continue with your takeoff. So important to note there is a difference between the two, and you just want to verify that the controller clears you for the correct one. So from there, we'll come around, we'd get our landing clearance, and we've been cleared for the touch and go, runway 26. You would respond, Alpha Bravo Charlie, clear touch and go, runway 26. In this scenario, he may even give you a right-hand turnout because that's going to be favorable for us. And we would just note that in the clearance. So we're going to fly along on final, the touch and go. Once we've reached 400 feet, you'll start that right-hand turn, and we just start heading out to the north. Climbing to our altitude, listening to the controller. Once we're clear of the zone, they're going to clear us to the en route frequency, and we'll be on our way back. So that's the gist of it. A couple other curveballs or stuff that'll be new to a pilot going into the controlled airspace is what may happen with other traffic, and more so if you're on a downwind leg. So let's change our scenario, and we'll say we've been cleared for the downwind leg, and we're flying along the downwind, and then it's quiet, so we get cleared to land. So in this case, we're cleared to land on runway 26. We can turn base whenever we see fit. We can turn final whenever we see fit. We'd go in for the landing. Now, if there's other traffic, maybe there's some IFR traffic coming in on a longer final, the controller may say, all right, Alpha Bravo Charlie, extend your downwind, I'll call your base. In that scenario, you're just going to continue flying straight on your downwind, and you're just waiting for the other traffic to come in, and you have to wait for the controller to turn your base. And all they're going to say is, Alpha Bravo Charlie, go ahead and turn your base now. You would turn on the base, but then you're going to turn final all on your own. You haven't got a clearance to land yet, so you're just flying your approach, you're descending, coming in on final, and maybe short final, you'll get your clearance there, and then you can go in for landing. If you don't have the clearance by the time you're short final, you'll have to do an overshoot, and then just advise the tower, Waterloo Tower, Alpha Bravo Charlie's overshooting runway 26. And from there, they're going to give you instruction that you'll comply with. One other thing, entering the control zone, as soon as you get cleared to a leg, of the circuit, whether it be the downwind, the base, final approach. Your altitude restriction is canceled unless they specifically say. So in our first example, they said don't descend below 2,600 over the city. Well, once you're clear of the city, you can descend to your circuit altitude. Or if you're 10 miles out, or let's say 5 miles out, and you're cleared to the downwind, you can begin your descent at your own discretion down to the downwind because you've been cleared to a leg of the circuit. So that's kind of one of the rules in a controlled airspace is when you're cleared to a leg of the circuit, you're allowed to descend down to circuit altitude. I think we've pretty well covered all of it there. We didn't talk about anything on the ground, but I'll make a separate video covering the ground communication. As far as your scenario goes here, coming in for a touch and go, that's pretty well the gist of it. There may be slight variations, but a lot of it is listening to the controller. If you understand what the clearance is, you'll respond with the clearance and really doing what they say. The initial contact, remember not to overload them with too much information. And then on that second call, you can include a lot more of what your intentions are, where you are, and so forth. So I hope this video was helpful for you guys going into Kitchener. Remember those ABCCs, your arrival procedure going into an airport, and that'll help you keep it structured and follow a guideline going into an airport. If you have any questions, please leave them below and I'll answer those for you guys. Thanks.